Welcome to the Neverworld podcast, where together we explore the strange and unusual. Every journey starts with the first step into the unknown.
Why don't you introduce this?
Daisy, seriously?
Yes, Daisy wants a piece of the Skinwalker Ranch.
Gosh, just as we get started. Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome to Neverworld podcast. I'm Dave. That's Scott. I think Scott's above me now.
It doesn't matter. I'm usually
he moves us.
Somebody moves us. I don't know who. I think it is government intervention somehow.
I think it's the Chinese. It's nice to have you with us. I know you have time that you can go somewhere else, anywhere else, and not listen to two old guys complain about.
Hey, before we get to Skinwalker, I just want to say I've been watching this documentary on Tubi from Dr. Stephen Greer called Beyond Top Secret, and it talks about the lost century. And there has been some amazing footage shown on that, and it's a pretty good documentary. And it shows,
it's on Tubi.
It's on Tubi. We've had all of this technology, and then why did it stop in the 50s? Why all of a sudden has all of this stopped? And it's explores a lot of that. So it's a documentary that I highly recommend taking a look at. It's I think it's called Beyond Top Secret, if I'm not mistaken. There's a couple of him. You can search just by Stephen Greer on Tubi as well.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's a good one. I've been just watching it in bits and pieces in between other things, and it's been some really cool footage that they've come up with and shown. Pretty neat stuff.
That out. I like his stuff. He's very interesting.
One of the things that he did mention was they had done a big conference during the Clinton administration, and it was all recorded and everything, and it was all about disclosure and all of that. And then the film crew was contacted by, I guess, the White House or somebody in the CIA, and all of a sudden all the footage was taken away and gone. And Stephen Greer has it all now. Somebody found it buried.
No kidding.
It was buried in somebody's backyard or something, and the guy was getting older, and he said, "Hey, I think you might want these."
No kidding.
Yeah, so he ended up with all these VHS tapes, and he said what he's doing is he's converting it right now, so we should be able to actually watch that before too long.
Right.
Which is the whole thing, which would be interesting because he's been at this for a while. But anyway, why we are here, folks, the secret of Skinwalker Ranch is a passion of David and mine, just because it's such a cool, entertaining show.
I love it.
And there's something going on out there. And we know we're never going to find out, but we really want to. And I got to watch and see. This week, Travis shot more rockets, Dave.
Did he shoot a rocket this week?
I don't know. Did he? I can't tell.
I don't think he did.
Are you sure?
They dropped big
That's
balls.
Right. They dropped
they dropped big balls from a helicopter.
Yeah. AC/DC in the background. Yeah. So
I've got big balls. Yeah.
I thought he shot a rocket, but no, they talked about the rocket that had exploded and showed that.
So they did have a rocket in this episode.
Yeah. So they showed how the rocket had exploded at 31 feet, right where that something is, and
that thing was,
which is really cool. And this time they went up to drop balls through the triangle from very high up.
Was it 9,000? Because they were above.
They went above like 10,000 feet up, I think. Yeah,
they were above that, and they had to drop them down. And it was interesting that Thomas got sick again. Thomas had to get off the ranch, and he was lining. They have in the triangle, for everybody who's watching the show, I'm going to talk like everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. They have the triangle. They had this, I think it might have been the tower that they were launching the rockets off of.
Yeah.
And Thomas was basically eyeballing the helicopter because the GPS never works on the helicopter. And when you're in the helicopter looking down, it doesn't necessarily mean you're actually where you think you are.
Right.
Because for whatever reason, nothing is as it seems on this damn ranch.
That's what they saw when they got the GPS data, that they had traveled miles and miles off course, and it was obvious they hadn't, but that's how the data came out. So like everything on this, and speaking of things not working, they had a crane come in to start removing boulders so they could dig.
Yeah,
And
right.
instantly this crane didn't work. Shocking. Nobody was surprised.
Well, it was just as they started to lift. I think it was just as they were starting to lift the first boulder.
Yeah.
They got that 1600 megahertz.
Yeah, the 1.6 gigahertz.
1.6 gigahertz. Thank you. I always want to call it a megahertz, but they always have some kind of problem. And I looked over at the old lady and I was like, "You watch, that crane's going to have a problem." And almost as soon as I came out of my mouth, that crane had a problem. Guy Thomas is back on the ranch. He calls over and says, "You're never going to believe." Oh yeah, you guys are probably going to believe this. The minute that guy engaged it, it just everything started going wonky.
Yeah,
and initially, remember, he couldn't even move the crane. Like the counterbalance wasn't working.
Yeah, that's what he was having trouble with. Yeah, couldn't even get that started. Looked like a brand new crane.
Yeah. See, I still think they should have drove that crane right over to where they were launching the rockets. Just put somebody on the end of that thing and lift it up. See if you can just touch, feel around, see if you can touch anything. See if you can get disintegrated, lose an arm, get sucked into a vortex, into another dimension.
Well, that's one of the things I find interesting about Brandon's brother, Cameron, the pilot of the helicopter. He is so gung-ho to go, and Brandon, of course, is worried about his brother because there's something always happens, and it would be scary. It was cool to see that. I was getting excited that, hey, they're finally clearing this, but it is, you can see the gigantic boulders, they're just going to come crashing down on them.
They had to get further up to start moving those ones, but there was no, I don't know how long or how big of a crane you could get in there to actually move any of that. Right.
So it looks like the guy that did the drilling last season is coming back, because I saw in the preview that they're going to, I'm hoping they uncover some more stuff. I want to see something, you know.
They got to hit something.
Yeah.
Because if that metal that's in there from last season, it's literally, it has to be made, right? I mean, it had to physically be made.
Well, that's their argument. I think Travis had said that material is not found in nature. It's manufactured by combining something or whatever to make the heat shields.
Yeah, because it had the two sides. One was one type of metal and one was the other.
That was it. Yeah.
They were compounds. They weren't like just simple metals.
Right.
They were like,
it looked like it was forged.
Yeah, they were forged that way.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy. So whatever's there, I would guess is man-made or something made. Some, even if they come out and they say, "Son of a bitch, we just found an ancient temple of some sort, and the reason everything goes haywire whenever we turn it on is because the whole damn thing is one big magnet." And that's, if they give me some kind of BS, but I want to see a building, I want to see something. There's something there, on that ranch and in that area, and probably all over that Utah basin, that Uinta, the Uinta basin.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be, because every Indian tribe around there knows about it. Everybody has problems in that entire area.
Yeah.
What else?
And it sounds like this season they're actually going to get more assistance from the locals on the reservation as well. But and rightfully so, people are nervous about coming forward because you're ridiculed, or it's a sacred thing to them as well. So,
well, it's also tradition to keep your mouth shut and just not talk about it.
Well, especially to outsiders,
Exactly. And these guys may have been there for 5 years. Heck, I think most of those guys have lived there most of their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dragon and Thomas, I think, have been there.
Travis is from Alabama, or at least that's where he's at now. So,
the interesting thing is when they were talking about the helicopter, and Cameron. I always want to call him Kerman for whatever reason. Cameron was like, "Yeah, that's an Apache. That's an Apache.
Yeah,
that's an attack copter." And they're like, "How can you tell?" And he described why.
He's a pilot. He's been around it all his life. I wondered that too. It's like, I bet you he's going to be able to hear and tell what kind of machine it is.
Yeah, they call in the Attorney General of Utah, and he seems a little ticked off. I don't think he's acting.
That's interesting. Is he the acting Attorney General right now, or is he a previous and just they keep the title? What's the deal with him?
No, I think he's the current Attorney General. I don't think it's the same governor that they talked to last time. I think they got a new governor, but I think the attorney general is the same guy.
Is. Sean Reyes is the current attorney general. So that gives a lot of credence to what's going on at the ranch, to all you naysayers.
I mean, I don't think he's acting whenever he was ticked off that he couldn't get a straight answer from people. I don't think he was expecting a straight answer, but he didn't like not getting one.
Somebody in that position is not going to, and then that they're not going to put themselves in that. So it sounds like he did find out where it came from. So it's obvious, and it's no surprise.
I keep saying if I were one of those guys at the table, I would have just looked over at Travis and said, "Man, why don't you just call your boss and find out?"
Well, one of the things I thought, and it's just pure speculation. And I'm not saying this to denigrate Travis at all, because I love him. But it's my first thought was, who'd you call, Travis? That was my first thought, and I'm sure that had to be everybody else's around the table. I was like,
yeah, that would be my first thought. As much as I like the guy. Yeah. And as much as I would trust him with a lot of shit that I'm doing, I don't know if I would trust him with my life. And it's nothing personal. It's just like, okay, you worked for the government for 40 years. We're out here on this bet. You know what? I don't think he would do anything to purposely harm anybody.
No.
But it's like, I think I'd always have that in the back of my head. Like, did you call somebody today? Are you ratting us out?
I always
have that in the back of my head.
I would always think he was going to go full on Paul Reiser from Aliens.
Yeah. That's what I would be afraid of.
Yeah, trust him up until then, and it's like, well, you just locked me in a room with the xenomorph egg layer. Nice,
just to see what would happen. I don't think Paul Reiser. I don't think he would do that. I honestly don't think it's in his makeup to do anything like that.
Right.
But I would always have that in the back of my head. Yeah. So if Travis ever watches these shows, he's going to be like, who the hell are these guys bad talking me? It's not meant to be bad talk.
No, not at all. It's just a question I would have.
The way I was brought up was, do not trust the government any more than you absolutely positively have to.
Yeah.
And don't trust anybody who works for the government.
Trust no one.
For 40 years.
Yeah, I mean.
More than you absolutely have to.
It would always be in the back of my head.
Yeah. Just to hang out with the guy and shoot pool and, shoot rockets, that'd be freaking great.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
But when it starts coming into helicopters flying into what we're investigating, and
because that was my first thought. It's like, anyway, yeah. So
the first thing out of my mouth would be, dude, just make your phone call. And that would be like every time something happened. That would be my go-to. Dude, who did you tell? Who in the hell are you talking to?
Yeah, and like I said, that was pure speculation because they've been obviously watching the ranch for a while, a long while.
Time.
Yeah, so they know when things are going on, they're going to come check it out, and I think it is just a psychological spook tactic to just mess with them.
Well, here's a thought. Just and this we've talked about is I don't want to give everything away on the show like we already basically have. But there's some really cool stuff.
Not a long show.
No, man, it was short. It felt really short. It felt like 15 minutes, but it was like its usual.
It's 40 minutes.
40, 45, whatever minutes. But talking about Bigelow, and we know for a fact Bigelow Aerospace was in business with the government and the DoD. We do not know that Fugel is in business with the DoD. I'm assuming that he's got government contracts. I'm just assuming he's got government tech contracts. Which any way to make a buck, I don't care. Not judging at all. I wish I had a government contract to make that kind of money.
Right.
But he's not a dumb guy. If Travis is making contact with somebody, Fugel's probably already knows it. They've probably already talked and said, look, I got to do this. I got to do that. There's just certain things I can't talk to you about. They've probably got it already all worked out. Like you said last week, a lot of this is probably for show. But as a guy working next to him, if I found out that you were a government agent for 40 years and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I retired, I'd be looking at you like, uh-huh.
Yeah.
You're retired. Okay. Yeah, gotcha. Retired. Gotcha.
No, that doesn't happen, right?
But I'm just thinking that between the two of them, did Bigelow or the government, while Bigelow was on that ranch, set up any kind of sensors that every time they do something, they're getting readings.
That
They've
or
not
they
looked for, to the best of my knowledge, they've not looked for anything like that.
no,
So
that
I would
or
start looking for shit like that.
I wonder if that, well, they know about the 1.6 gigahertz signal, and they
Right.
can probably see that go up and just like, well, there it is.
Well, that's what I mean. Like they've
Yeah.
got sensors all around like the ranch.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But has Fugel and company looked for any of these sensors?
But that could probably travel a long way. They probably wouldn't have to be very close to pick that up. Yeah, because
oh, you don't think they'd have to be right on the ranch or close?
I don't
to
know.
It?
I don't know.
I don't know enough about it.
It could be just tech that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, it could also be some alarms. But I don't know. I'm
gonna bust Travis Taylor's chops anyway, just because it's fun. And I love the guy to death whenever he shoots a rocket.
Absolutely. His excitement and his eagerness is infectious. And it's why I love this show, because everybody is so cool on it. And they're down to earth. They're how I feel I would act, a little bit of each of them in this situation. And I get it. I'll share a real quick story with our listeners. One time I forget what happened. I was digging in the yard and I saw like the edge of something. It looked like a 90-degree corner, and I started digging, and dude, this was the next archaeological find of the century.
I already know what it was.
I had excavated, and I was so excited, and then it had this big concrete lid on it, and I'm like,
I already know
what is
this?
this? I'm trying to keep a straight face. I pry that sucker up and almost throw up. It's a grease trap. It's a grease trap. You were probably thinking that or a septic.
I was thinking it was a septic tank.
It might as well have been, but it was the grease trap before the septic tank. But dude, I was so excited. If I'd have had a rocket, I'd have shot that sucker.
Rocket.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh my God, that's hysterical.
But that's what happens when you think when you're onto something and you get excited and you just go, and then you already know what you found, and then it's like, oh no, that's not it. And I know that happens here. It's natural. It's human. It's that's why I like watching this, because I feel I get excited along with them. And I'm just dying to see inside the mesa. So.
You know what? I'm telling you right now, if I was there with them and that one door that was really low opened up, and Travis was like, well, I'm going in, I'd be like, fuck, I'm going with you.
Yeah.
I mean, how many chances would you ever get for something like, well, it could tear you apart limb from limb. I got to think about this.
I'm going in.
I got to think about that. Yeah. Smoke me a kipper. I'll be back in time for breakfast. Let's go.
Maybe.
Yeah. Don't know when for breakfast, which breakfast, could be in the past, could be in the future. How weird would that be as if you came out like 400 years in the past? You'd be like walking out. It looks pretty much the same. And then you're like, wait a minute. There's subtle differences here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Been
crazy. So
the door shuts behind you.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for the episode, is just going over the data that they got from that and dropping the balls to see if it would curve out. And I didn't feel they touched on any of that very much.
Well, the freezing, the pictures was 1,000 frames a second, and that one UAP following the helicopter.
That was cool. Really, there was a spherical UAP behind the helicopter. And my first thought, well, it's a ball. Yeah, dummies, you were dropping them. But
that's what I was thinking. But they said it was actually following them. So I was like, oh, well, that's not the ball.
That, and they know they were throwing out balls. Yeah. They would have said, guys, that was a ball.
Yeah.
So
they would have guessed that right away.
Yeah. So
but yeah, this episode was pretty good. I liked it. I
absolutely. So, folks, if you enjoy Skinwalker Ranch, just talking about it, chatting about it, drop us a line, come in and listen. We appreciate you stopping by and listening to two old men ramble about our aliens and other crazy stuff, septic tanks, and you name it. So catch us next week with more info on Skinwalker Ranch.
Take it easy, folks. Bye.